So, John, who do you know wants to buy a car? In this episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning, we're going to be talking about the car buying process, how you can get the best deal possible when you're buying a car. I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I have a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And before we start talking about buying a car, I want to remind everybody to hit the subscribe button, right? That helps other people find our YouTube channel and find this information. So hit subscribe, and then let's get on to talking about buying a car. And I know this is a personal thing for you as of late here, right?
Yeah, well, my dad worked for Heiser Ford in Milwaukee for years. And so he actually loved selling used cars, but then ended up moving up the food chain and was the guy, the sales manager, etc., who was in the back. You know, I got to go talk to my manager. My dad was that guy. And I have to say, I had mixed feelings about his checkered jackets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his checkered sports jackets.
It was 1975. Right? I mean, you got to take this in consideration. It's context.
Yeah. Anyway, I did learn a lot from my dad about buying cars, and actually, he passed away about 3 years ago. So I thought it would be fun to do an episode about buying cars.
Yeah, I love this.
All right. So when you buy a car, there's a bunch of factors in play. And sometimes people can be focused on what's the invoice? How much did it cost the dealer? I want to have the dealer not make any money on this price. And I think that's actually the wrong approach for a couple reasons. The biggest one is that there's more factors than just the car. And the dealers generally, they make a little bit of money on the car, but they don't make that much. And so you've got more negotiating power, and you can actually save more money on some of the other items that we're going to be talking about, not just the base price or how much over sticker, etc.
I'm so excited to hear about this, just because in general, it's sort of a black box, right? You kind of don't know when you hear stories and what's the reality. But then also, this is one of the biggest purchases people make. How many things do you buy in the course of your lifetime that cost tens of thousands of dollars if you're buying a later model car? Right? And you don't buy that many of them, right? We're not buying 50 for most people, right? We're not buying 50 or 100. We're going to buy a couple of houses in our lifetime, maybe, and a handful of cars, right? And so it's not one of those things that people are used to. And so I'm really interested to hear, and just that idea about, hey, it's not just about sticker price or what the dollar price is. What are the other factors that you really think we should focus on?
Well, you want to focus on the price, of course, but then you also want to think about what your trade-in is worth and what the financing is like. So those are other ways that other profit centers for the dealer. Also, when you're talking about the price, you've got the base price, right? Mm-hmm. But then you've got add-ons. And so you want to cast a skeptical eye on the add-ons. So the one that my dad used to talk about was rust proofing. He would laugh about rust proofing. Mm-hmm. So that is, so they'll say, oh, you need this little thing, you need that thing. Oh, you have to have a tire, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you have to do all these extras. So I'm not saying never get any of it. I'm just saying cast a skeptical eye on those items, because that is a place where the dealer is making money. The other thing is that there's a particular kind of bias, and maybe you'll remember the name of it, is that when you're buying something that costs tens of thousands of dollars, $1,000 seems small, and you're willing to pay that $1,000. Versus if you're out at the grocery store, $1,000 is still $1,000. It doesn't matter if you're at the car dealership or at the grocery store. But because of the context that you're buying it in, you're more likely to say, oh yeah, I can use rust proofing. Yeah, why not? I don't want rust. It's $1,000, so what? But that $1,000, again, take it to the grocery store and think about how many months worth of groceries can you buy for that? Right. And think about that perspective when you're looking at those add-on items. Separate item that I want to mention is the extended warranties. Now,
what's your thoughts on those?
Well, it's interesting because they're not necessarily a ripoff, but they're a major profit center for dealers. And any industry that is finding my cell phone number, calling me and leaving messages, cold call, etc. I take a skeptical view of how are they, is this really a good deal?
Right. So what do you, I mean, not, can we talk about what you do personally?
I have a savings account.
Yeah.
I certainly like cards with decent warranties, like from the manufacturer, but I have an emergency fund.
Yeah.
I got an emergency fund, that's what that's for. I have insurance, that's what that's for.
Yeah.
And actually on my insurance I have a high deductible policy because that's what the best deal is on my auto insurance. But then I have a savings account, and that's my extended warranty, and it's cheaper. Yeah. Actually, if I take the $1,000 that the extended warranty would cost and put it in my savings account,
you're ahead.
I'm ahead. Yeah.
It's interesting as we think about this, and there's the warranties you get from the manufacturer, and then there's like those third party warranties, right? The separate things on that. And I think that this is one of those things that's a personal choice on various things, and it's sort of like risk tolerance for various other things, whether it's investments or insurance. How much do you want to insure? Those sorts of things. And some people say, golly, I want to make sure I protect myself against everything. And other people say, listen, let's keep the cost down and I'll deal with it on the other side. And it's interesting. And so I explain it that way for people is, where do you fall on this spectrum? And it's probably a better deal to not take the warranty and do the savings. I've sort of shifted. It's interesting as I've gotten older that I'll lean towards just the manufacturer side of things and not those third party ones.
Right.
But to say even to pay a little extra, and for me it's always being a financial guy, it's what's the trade-off, what's the profit versus, and there's some mental satisfaction or peace of mind that goes, listen, I just don't have to think about this. Something goes wrong, I don't have to think about it, right? And there was a point in my life where thinking about it was worth a lot of money, or I was willing to make that trade-off. And now I'm less that way and go, you know what? I'd rather pay a little more and not have to think about it. So it's not, like I said, probably financially speaking, you're losing money. Yep, probably. But what am I getting for that? Being intentional about that decision, I think, is a really important thing.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so let's talk about the other items, which is trade-in. Okay, so I think one thing I think people need to be aware of is if you're going to trade in a car, you're probably going to get a better deal if you're doing the effort to go do it yourself. Like then what you get at a dealer.
Put it on Facebook Marketplace or one of the other, and
that's one I specifically heard is what people use right now. Right. I don't have personal experience with it, but I've heard Facebook's a good.
Whatever today's classified ads are, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that is one thing to point out, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is financing. So another profit center for the dealer. So what you want to do is go to your local credit union, if you're in the credit union, get pre-approved for an auto and find out what their interest rate is. And you want to take that with you when you go in. And it's not like you're definitely going to use that, but that's a good negotiating. You know what that is.
Tool in your tool belt.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's funny, one time I went in, and this was several years ago, but we were negotiating the interest rate. And all of a sudden, the interest rate went down by 1%. Once I had that, they could match it. So
interesting.
We ended up, in that case, not using the credit union, but we have used the credit union other times. So it just depends. So that's another tip. Now let's talk about invoice on a car. Okay.
Can I stop there for just 1 second, Bridget? So it seems like it's really interesting. Thanks for sharing your expertise here. It seems like there's several separate transactions, right? I'm buying a car, but then it's like, well, listen, if I was refinancing my mortgage, the only thing that I'm worried about is the terms and the closing costs and things, and that's part of the car buying process, or can be, right? And then I've got what are the add-ons, what are the extra things, and that's a whole separate thing from the sticker price and all. And so, and I don't know if it's helpful, but it's really interesting to sort of process this, sitting here having this conversation, that maybe the thought of, there's different things, and when it all gets lumped together, like you're saying, that $1,000, oh sure, just add this in, this whole big deal. But to think about, no, we've got some separate transactions. Should I trade my car in or sell it? That's one decision.
Right.
Should I get financing from the dealership or from the credit union, or for not get financing? It's a separate decision. Then the add-ons, there's all these things, and so maybe to mentally be prepared for, I'm not making one transaction when I buy a car, I'm making multiple transactions, and to think about those distinctly can help people be proactive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
And so another thing I just want to mention is an invoice is kind of a red herring. So like figuring out how much the dealer paid for a car is kind of crazy, because they get all kinds of different deals from the manufacturer and from their banks. Like, so they basically take out loans to have their car lot to finance their inventory. So you don't, and they'll have different promotions, etc., from the manufacturer. So, like, what they pay for an individual car, it can vary a lot. And so it's kind of a red herring. The manufacturer's suggested retail price is not. That is what the manufacturer suggests. So that's not a red herring. So make sure you're looking at all these different elements and not getting too dragged into things that don't matter. So the last thing I want to do is talk about what the current market is and how you might be able to get a decent deal.
I like this one.
It's tough. You might. My biggest advice is wait if you can. You know, so right now we're filming this in August of 2022. And if you can wait to buy a car, new or used, that is probably your best option, just because the inventory is low and it's kind of a widely fluctuating market. So when you're buying a car, you've got your timing is one issue. Like, there's better times to buy a car than others. But then there's also how flexible are you on the model, on the color, on how far you'll go to buy it. All those types of things can influence if you can find a decent deal or not, right? And so if you've got something specific in mind, right now it's gonna be it might be tough to find that. I heard Alfa Romeos might be good.
Is that right?
They've got inventory, but like it's tough because the supply and the demand with cars right now is just out of whack.
And I know that you're talking about traveling and different things. I know there's some online resources that you've mentioned that you've been able to find that have some really good
one that,
source.
Right, one that I've found that I like is Join YAA. They've got an online community, and they're actually kind of like a fee-only model.
Interesting.
You pay a membership, and then they give you objective advice. And some of my information about what's current has come from them, and they seem legit. I like that. I like their model.
Interesting. That's great.
And they've also got a YouTube channel and podcast. So it's a great way to find more information if you're interested.
Super. Well, I think it's a great way maybe to wrap things up here, and thanks so much for sharing all this information on how to buy a car and how to think about it. We're always interested in viewers, what you guys are thinking about, what your experience has been. Drop a note in the comments, share your experience, maybe questions you have, and we look forward to hearing from you on that. And to wrap things up, I'm John Shearer, and I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
And I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. We're both meet clients in our offices, but if you're interested in meeting a local planner in your area, you can check out acplanners.org. We're both members of that organization, proud members, and there's like-minded advisors all over the country.
That's right. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time.